As we just reported, today is the day analysts in Canada found out where they stand, at least in the annual Brendan Wood International Survey. Earlier today, I spoke with Chairman Brendan Wood from the London Stock Exchange. I started by asking him about the relevance of the survey.
The study is best known for the analysts, but in fact the origins of this study and its ongoing purpose is entirely about the performance of investment dealers across the spectrum of equity services, namely sales, research, trading, soft dollars, new issue, personal service at all levels. So the actual study is a comprehensive investigation on behalf of our clients into where they stand with their clients and how effective their entire business mix is. The fact that the analyst report or the analyst section of the report has become, to quote Jim McKay, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat for analysts is it's really a byproduct of a much more comprehensive study. So as the popularity's grown, we've had to become more and more meticulous in how we evaluate analysts.
So how do you evaluate the analysts? What are the criteria, the big factors?
Again, going to the business mix, and I think this is maybe what makes our effort a little different than popularity polls, is our real emphasis is who pays this analyst and how much do they pay for the service the analyst adds to the investment process. So the first thing we look at is how widely followed the analyst is and the amount of actual remuneration that is paid for the performance of the analyst. Next, we move to the quality of the investment input. Notable there is, facets like sector knowledge, individual expertise in particular companies, and the validity of the investment ideas that the analyst puts forward.
What about the issue of credibility? I see that's second on the list, but I see honesty way down the list at 14th, whereas it was 5th last year. What's the distinction?
Well, I think the atmosphere in the public markets has changed a little bit. Investors are usually well ahead of the curve. They certainly have been around the world. We interviewed 3,000 investors last year, and you might have expected them to have, institutional investors that is, you might have expected them to have a more critical eye to the investment community, but the dealer community in particular, investment banks, but not so. And what you're seeing there is really a reaction amongst investors. They're looking at the credibility of the work, which ranks high as a reason for picking top analysts, but honesty is pretty much a given, and it's investors are focused on the credibility of current work.
What about on the worst side of the ledger? What are the worst ones show up as?
Well, analysts who don't rate well are typically either it's the quality of work, the lack of an effective service relationship with their clients, but often, Howard, it's a function of credibility as it pertains to, having a duality of interest, being too corporate finance oriented, or maybe being too short term. Canadian investors generally do a pretty good job. They're long-term thinkers for the most part, or try to be, and they're looking for depth and quality in work as opposed to, a short-term trading outlook.
One thing that caught my eye in the anecdotal section was that the good ones are not afraid to embarrass management with tough questions.
That's true. I think that the investment community, sets a lot of store in an analyst who actually knows a company well enough to present argument to the company, and notably argument that's perceived in the interest of investors. And analysts do have probably more influence than any other single constituency out there, in that management really do care, especially what the most influential analysts have to say about them. And so it can be very provocative, and it's a byproduct of the service, and investors appreciate it when analysts give companies that need a bit of criticism or a bit of prompting a hard time.
To what extent has the report that you do become a marketing tool for investment banks? To give the, the top ranking.
Yeah, it's used in pitch books. I think that's an unavoidable and appropriate use of it. And I think it does make a difference, especially now, Howard, where we're actually beginning to publish around the world which analysts are most influential in particular stocks. Then obviously the companies behind those stocks are very interested to know which analysts are most highly regarded by investors for their work.
How often do the top-ranked analysts one year make it to the top of the list the next year? Do they maintain their ratings?
It's about 75% continuity. This year we have 25% new names on the all-star list. So there's quite a bit of fluidity there. The competition, it's a tough business, and the competition is very intense. And I guess one of the things that our study does is intensify that competition somewhat.
How has the competitive landscape evolved for these people?
Well, the industry leaders have been there for a while. This year we have in the top 5, we have top 6. We have some firms moving up and others moving down. Some of the American multinationals have lessened their involvement in the Canadian market, Howard, and that leaves room for Canadian boutiques, and they're trying to take advantage of that. But generally speaking, Canadian investors are a bit over-centered on Canadian investments and anxious to diversify internationally. So the market is shrinking a little bit, and about 30% of Canadian investment dollars are now invested outside the country.
Just to finish up, there are some other firms that rank or look at the track record of analysts as per the target prices, whether target prices were reached and so forth. How does your survey stack up against those in terms of value added for firms?
Well, I think we're looking far more. I think the whole idea of the analyst call, the analyst judgment on a particular price, it's a bit overplayed, and the media, yourself excluded, Howard, the media overplay it quite a bit. And in fact, what investors are paying for, especially institutional investors, they're paying for valuable input. They're paying for insight into the company. They're paying for analysis. Lately, all-star analysts are being increasingly picked for the thoroughness of their understanding of international business sectors and so forth. So perspective. The analyst's there to add value to a process, and most investors make their own investment decisions. But obviously, earnings forecasts and the ability to make good calls consistently is important. Interestingly enough, a few years ago we had an analyst who was paid quite a lot of money by institutions for being consistently wrong, but what they liked was his methodology stayed the same. So.
Okay, well, it's been good speaking with you. Thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure, Howard.
That's Brendan Wood, chairman of Brendan Wood International, joining us from the London Stock Exchange. The business news will be right back after this.